There's a side of male desire you've probably never been told about. A place where psychology meets the body, where attraction goes beyond what's physical. Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." That's exactly what happens in the moments I'm about to describe. You've heard of positions, you've heard of intimacy, but there are 5 actions men secretly crave. Actions that trigger not just pleasure, but something far deeper, almost primal in their minds. Most women never try them, not because they can't, but because no one ever told them how much influence they hold. And here's where it gets fascinating. These aren't just angles or techniques. They're psychological triggers designed, whether consciously or not, to make him remember you, not just the act. And I'm going to walk you through all 5. But not yet. First, you need to grasp why they work, because if you rush to copy them without the right attitude, you'll miss the real magic. Men are used to leading, they're expected to perform, to control the pace, to be the man. But when a woman shifts the situation, when she creates space for him to simply exist and be fully noticed, something changes. He stops performing, he starts feeling. That's when you bypass the surface and touch the part of him that doesn't forget. I used to think men only remembered the wild, intense moments, the kind you see in movies. But the truth, the moments they crave over and over, are the ones where their guard dropped without them even noticing, where they weren't just desired for their body, but for their presence. That's why the first action on our list works so well. I call it the anchor. Face him, legs wrapped chest to chest, arms around his neck. It's deceptively simple, but psychologically, it's loaded. In this position, you're not just close. You're eliminating the space where performance lives. Your breath merges with his. Your heartbeats start to match. He's not just holding you, he's with you. There's no escape from the connection. And here's where Jung's insight comes alive. In that closeness, both of you change. The physical fades into the background and the emotional becomes the main act. But what makes it unforgettable isn't just the closeness, it's the micro actions. When your hand drifts to the back of his neck, when you whisper something that's not even meant to be seductive but is deeply personal, you're embedding yourself in his emotional memory. You're becoming part of the story he tells himself about intimacy. And here's the twist. The anchor isn't even the most powerful action on this list, not by a long shot. There's one later, number 4, that taps into something far older, almost foundational in male psychology. I'll explain when we get there. But for now, think of the anchor as your foundation. Without it, the others lose half their power. Now, here's the part most women miss. The anchor isn't about holding on. It's about letting him feel like he's the one being held. That role reversal is subtle but seismic. Men aren't offered that kind of emotional safety often. When they get it, they don't forget. I remember once years ago, I tried this without even realizing. No fancy moves, no trying to be sexy, just stillness, breathing with him, fingers tracing his hairline. Weeks later, he told me it was the moment he knew he couldn't stop thinking about me. That's the psychological hook we're working with here. And yes, we're just getting started, because the second action, the edge, flips the energy completely. And it's where tension becomes a tool. The edge is where you take every ounce of anticipation and stretch it until it almost snaps. Imagine this. You're lying back, your body framed in a way that lets him see you completely. No filters, no barriers. His eyes can roam, but you're the one setting the rhythm, even if he doesn't realize it. This is where control becomes art. Men think they're leading when they're standing, leaning over. But the truth is, your hips, your legs, even the angle of your hands can guide everything without a single word. The edge works because it plays with his primal urge to chase, but it flips the power dynamic. You become the gatekeeper of pace, depth, and intensity. And here's the secret psychological hook. When you stay still longer than he expects, it forces his focus onto every tiny detail. Your breathing, the way your skin warms under his hands, the way your eyes meet his for just a moment before drifting closed. Stillness isn't absence of movement, It's the sharpening of sensation. Then when you finally move, just a subtle shift of your hips or a hand drawing him closer, the contrast feels explosive. Jung would say, this is the shadow in action, the tension between surrender and control. It's irresistible because it's rare. Most people rush. They burn through anticipation like it's something to get past. But when you let it build, when you own the silence and let the air thicken, you're making every nerve in his body listen. And he will listen. He won't just feel the change, he'll crave it. What I love about The Edge is how it gives you space to read him without rushing to please him. You're observing, you're adjusting, you're deciding how far to let him in and when. The men who experience this never forget it. Not because it's the most acrobatic or cinematic moment, but because it's the one where they realized you weren't just there. You were conducting the entire experience, and yet, as potent as The Edge is, it's nothing compared to what comes next. Because the third action is where you take away one of his senses entirely. You remove his ability to read your face, to know what you're thinking. And in that moment, his imagination becomes your greatest ally. I call it the backstage pass. In this position, you turn away from him. Maybe you're on your knees leaning forward, maybe standing with your hands braced against a wall. The specifics don't matter as much as the perspective. From where he stands, he can't see everything. He doesn't know exactly what you're feeling or what you'll do next. That gap between what's visible and what's hidden is where his mind goes wild. Men are visual, yes, but they're also deeply imaginative. When given the chance, when you deny him full access to your expression, you're forcing him to read you in other ways. Your movements, your breathing, the shifts of your weight. Every small adjustment becomes magnified. Every change in rhythm hits harder. This is mystery at its purest form, and it's addictive. Psychologically, you're engaging what Jung might call the anima, his inner image of feminine energy, and letting him project into it. You become not just the woman in front of him, but the embodiment of something he can't fully define. That's why a fleeting glance over your shoulder, just long enough to meet his eyes before looking away again, can send him into overdrive. You're offering a taste and then taking it away, and that push-pull dynamic locks his attention on you like nothing else. The beauty of the backstage pass is that it frees you from self-consciousness. You're not thinking about whether your facial expression is right because he can't see it. You can close your eyes, let your head fall forward, and move with pure instinct. That freedom translates into confidence, and confidence is magnetic. He feels it, he reacts to it. And here's the deeper layer. When he can't see your face, he listens harder to your body. He notices the smallest cues. He follows without realizing he's following. You are leading in silence. But as powerful as mystery is, there's another level entirely, an action that doesn't hide you at all. In fact, it brings you so close there's nowhere to hide. And when you use it right, it becomes the most emotionally dangerous of all. This one is the full embrace. Face to face, legs wrapped around him, arms circling his neck, bodies pressed so close you can feel every heartbeat. On the surface, it seems simple, almost too simple. But psychologically, it's one of the most potent actions you can give him. In the full embrace, there is no escape from your presence. Your eyes are right there. Your breath mingles with his. Your chest rises and falls against his. He's not just touching you, he's immersed in you. This is where you bypass the performance entirely. There's no room for distraction, no space for him to think about how he looks or whether he's doing enough. He simply exists in the moment with you. And that's rare for men. They're used to carrying the role of leader, of performer, of protector. Here you strip all that away and offer something few ever give them, a space where they can simply be themselves. Jung might call this individuation in real time, a dissolving of the masks into pure authenticity. Small gestures in this position are amplified beyond reason, running your hands through his hair, tracing the line of his back, whispering something that only he can hear. Every tiny action lands like a spark because of the proximity. And when your eyes meet, if you hold that gaze long enough for him to feel it rather than just see it, you're telling him without words, I choose you, all of you, right now. That kind of moment imprints itself not just on his memory, but on his sense of who you are. It becomes a reference point for intimacy in his mind. The full embrace is versatile. It can be slow and tender, deep and urgent, or shift seamlessly between the two. You set the tone. But here's the part most people overlook. When you're this close, you're not just feeding his desire, you're grounding him. You're telling his nervous system it's safe to let go, and that is dangerously addictive. But as grounding as this position is, it's not the peak of the list, because the fifth action doesn't just connect you in the moment, it plants a memory so vivid, he'll carry it like a secret fire for years. The final one is the slow burn. This isn't about a single angle or a flashy movement. It's about pacing the entire moment in a way that turns time itself into an assistant. You start close enough for him to feel your warmth, but not quite close enough to satisfy the need you've just awakened. Every movement is deliberate, every pause intentional. You don't rush to the peak, you feed the fire one ember at a time. In the slow burn, you might trace his jawline with your fingers. Let your lips hover near his without touching. Lean in just enough for your breath to become part of his inhale. Then you pull back a fraction, forcing his attention to stay locked on you. Psychologically, you're rewiring his anticipation loop. Most men are conditioned to think intimacy moves in a straight line from spark to climax. Here you teach him that the space between is the real treasure. Jung would say you're activating the archetype of the temptress, not as manipulation, but as mastery of timing. The longer you stretch the moment without breaking it, the more vivid each detail becomes in his mind. The texture of your skin, the weight of your gaze, the way your hand tightens slightly when you draw him closer, and when you finally close that last bit of distance, the release hits him with far more intensity than if you'd rushed. But here's the twist. The slow burn isn't just for him. When you give yourself permission to linger, to explore without a finish line, you heighten your own sensitivity. You notice the subtle changes in his breathing, the micro expressions in his eyes, the way his body shifts in response to yours. You become more present, and presence is the most intoxicating gift you can offer. The reason men beg for this but rarely experience it is because it requires confidence. The kind that says, I'm not afraid to be fully here with you, and I don't need to hurry. Once a man has felt the slow burn with you, it's almost impossible for him to forget. It's the kind of memory that will come back to him in quiet moments, years later. And that's the thread tying all 5 actions together. They're not about technique alone, but about crafting experiences that live in his body and mind long after the moment ends. So here's my challenge. Pick one tonight, don't announce it, don't make it a performance. Just bring it into being with absolute fearless confidence. Watch the way his eyes change. Watch the way he reaches for you without thinking, and understand in that instant you've become the chapter in his story he'll never stop rereading.